Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Rethink Your Refresh. CBN is a believer in IT agility with Pure Storage. This special webinar event is brought to you in partnership with Pure Storage, and we're excited to have special guests from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Thank you everyone for joining us on today's webinar. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's event. Now, before we get started, just a few things that you should know. We want this to be an educational event. We want to help you to learn about the latest and greatest in storage technology and get all your storage questions answered. So we encourage you to submit your questions in the questions box. We'll be answering those questions during the presentation with help from experts at Pure Storage, and we'll be queuing up some of those questions for the dedicated Q&A session at the end of the event. We also have a number of handouts available in your audience console in the handouts tab. I encourage you to check those out and download those for after the webinar. And finally, we'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card at the end of the presentation. If you're watching this on demand, I'm sorry, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found in the handouts tab. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you to today's expert presenters. They are Mr. Kevin Rickson, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Pure Storage, with special guest, Mr. Tony Shoemaker, Senior Systems Engineer at the Christian Broadcasting Network. Kevin and Tony, it's really great to have you both on the event today. I love it when we have customers on these events to hear about their real-world stories. I'll first hand it off to you, Kevin. Take it away.
Thanks so much, and welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Rickson, and today we're going to be talking about rethinking your refresh with a customer perspective, a user who has rethought their own refresh and moved from legacy storage onto Pure Storage, and that's Tony Shoemaker with Christian Broadcasting Network. So just you probably already saw our pictures before, but here you've actually got our Twitter handles as well. So if you wanted to reach out to us and let us know what you think of today's information, that would be great. So I just want to do a little bit of level setting before my conversation with Tony to let you know what has been going on within the storage world. And I don't think any of this is really going to be, a surprise to anyone out there. One of the things that we wanted to do at Pure was reinvent the way people thought about storage. And a big part of that was to get rid of a lot of the business models and the business rules and expectations that the legacy storage vendors have been using to really put a lot of you in a bind. We call that the storage status quo. And like I said, I think this is going to be familiar to most of you. It winds up once you've made your purchase, and after about 3 years or so, that's usually about the time when most of your initial maintenance contracts come to an end. And when you go, even if, things have been working okay, maybe they're a little bit slower, maybe it'd be great if you had a few more features, but you're okay with what you got and you just want to extend that maintenance, it winds up costing double and triple. We call that maintenance extortion. And the reason that most of the vendors do that is what they're trying to get you to do is rebuy everything, what's called a forklift upgrade, basically taking all that old equipment out on a forklift and bringing all the new stuff in on another forklift and going through that huge migration process, including all of the repurchase of all that storage. And you can understand why, because that, helps keep the coffers full at those legacy storage companies, but that's not really a sane way of doing business from the standpoint of you, the users out there. And at Pure, we took a look at that and realized that it's not just the fact that you have to rebuy all that storage or pay all that extra money just to keep old storage on the floor. Once you do go through that migration process, there's even more hidden costs that wind up emerging. The fact that you have to buy that new storage array early so that you can do that migration project, then you got to do the migration. That takes a lot of people hours. Oftentimes you need to bring in outside agencies to help you with that. And then you have to keep that old storage longer. That can be up to 60% of the original cost of the array, just in soft costs to move off of that old array. And that's not just, hey, take our word for it. This is actually based on a couple of Wikibon studies that took a look at this setup. So what we looked at from Pure was, what if we did things differently? What if we actually took a look at storage the way that you're used to taking a look at software these days, software as a service, where you just deploy it once and then it just keeps getting better over time. And creating an architecture that has no planned downtime, no data migrations, full performance all the way through all your upgrades, whether it's software upgrades or hardware. And then the ability to keep it modern by having modular swappable components like controllers. And a real benefit, aside from just making sure that your data is always up and available to users, is it protects your investment. And that's basically what we've done with Evergreen storage. So with that in mind, let's take a look at how this works in the real world. So as I mentioned, Tony Shoemaker is here with me. How are you doing today, Tony?
Very good, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing the time with me. So Tony is senior systems engineer at CBN. Why don't you tell us a little bit about CBN's mission and how long you've been there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me on, Kevin, and to talk about our experience with Pure Storage. I've been with CBN now since 2011, so I've been with them close to 10 years now. And so I've seen a lot of changes from the storage perspective. Our mission, CBN's mission has been to spread the gospel throughout the world. As you can see, we've reached over around 200 countries through cable broadcast and satellite. Headquarters is actually based in Virginia Beach, but we do have some presence in Nashville, Tennessee. I actually work out of the Nashville location, but primarily focusing on storage, data protection, business continuity. I've also delved into the VMware virtual side of things and disaster recovery as well.
Got it. So what kind of IT demands and challenges do you face in a ministry like Christian Broadcasting Network?
Well, I'd like to say, it would be almost no different from any other IT department. We have demands both for compute and storage. Users tend to think that we have a infinite amount of both resources, compute and storage. User desktop support and meeting those needs on a daily basis. DBAs coming to us and asking us, hey, can we get better storage performance? We're seeing these things drop in communication with communication link errors and such as that.
Right. So just like any other IT organization where, so it sounds like a lot of your workloads are based in, you've got a lot of database workloads. You're doing a lot of virtualization, obviously, of that compute and storage and stuff. What are some of the other things that you do from a workload perspective?
Yeah, I guess just to give everyone just an idea of, primarily what we work with. We are primarily a Windows shop. We are a VMware shop. Of course, we do have some Linux presence in our environment. We're running around 400 VMs, and it's a mix of CRM databases. We are primarily SQL server base with many different applications that we're running in-house, some of them homegrown. And we also run a VDI instance at both sites, Virginia Beach and Nashville.
Got it. And you mentioned that performance was one of the things I think a lot of us can recognize the fact that, yeah, the end users out there in DBAs are never really satisfied with performance, but it sounds like you really had some bottlenecks going on. Can you give us a little more detail about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so starting out, we actually were on some EMC Clarion CX 480s. We then moved to a VNX2. On our VNX2, with our backup technology, it simply would call the VMware APIs to conduct snapshots on the storage. And especially with our SQL databases, we suffered a lot with communication link errors, and this would cause a lot of disruption on the SQL applications. So enter into the picture Pure Storage, and let me back up a little bit before
Yeah, sure.
talk about it. As far as before we got into Pure Storage, when we were at that point of looking at storage replacement, we had gone to EMC to get a quote refresh, and we had done that, of course, prior when we moved from the Clarions to the VNX2,
Right.
and it was a huge task going through that whole maintenance renewal, and typically the pricing on that maintenance renewal would almost encourage you to go ahead and look at getting some additional storage or some new storage.
Right.
And so we were at that point with the VNX2.
Got it.
And so it wasn't.
So you'd already done one transition from legacy, an even older legacy, to, at the time, newer legacy, with all the complexity that's involved in that, having to rebuy it, all that. Yeah, you were faced with the maintenance extortion. It just made more sense to just go ahead and opt in for the new one. And now that second storage that you'd gone to is now aging out as well, and you're having these performance issues, correct?
That's correct. And I use the word extortion, but it really is that, in the sense that you're thinking, wow, really we have to move to a whole new platform to get what we want, and we're going to have to go through all that work and getting that data moved over, and it's a nightmare. And they had promised us that when we were moving to different storage controllers, I'm going back to the Clarions, but to different storage controllers, they had said that it would be completely non-disruptive. But
yes,
when it actually came,
over-promising and under-delivering, huh?
Yes, exactly. And when it came time to do that actual upgrade, we literally had to shut down our entire environment, meaning all VMs, all ESXi hosts. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Yeah, that always goes over so well with end users, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
and your staff,
and then us engineering having to spend an entire weekend,
exactly,
working
because
on
you can't do it in the middle of the business day.
Exactly,
you've got to do it on your nights and weekends. Yeah,
wasn't fun. Yeah. So fast forward, we're on the VNX2, and we're looking at maintenance renewal. It's that same process, and I mean, you're pulling your hair out trying to verify all the SKUs and making sure everything's covered correctly. We started looking around at other platforms and enter into the picture Pure Storage. We had talked to a lot of different references, different clients. We did our research on the web, looking at forums, feedback. We engaged Gartner to be sure, and with all of these different researches that we were doing across the board, we finally came to a decision that, hey, let's at least do a proof of concept with Pure. Did a Pure proof of concept with Pure. We were extremely happy with the results, and we moved forward with Pure back in mid 2017, and we couldn't be happier.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's one thing. So with management continuously reminds me. I'd say I hear it a couple times throughout the year that, Pure Storage has been one of the best decisions that we've ever made, and I can't agree more with that. It's especially from the storage side of things. I'm the primary when it comes to storage, and one thing that CBN IT has been striving for is moving more of our operational type, day-to-day type tasks to our operations center, to our technical operations center. In the past, engineering has been solely responsible for storage when it comes to the daily care and feeding of the storage, the maintenance renewals, the software upgrades, and the storage control upgrades. It's always been under engineering.
Right.
With Pure Storage, we have actually handed all of those tasks over to the operations center. So what does that mean? I think for a storage engineer or storage administrator, they might think, well, you're working yourself out of a job. And maybe, maybe some people may take it that way. I don't take it that way. I see it as a headache going away that I can now focus on, engineers can now focus on doing design work.
Right.
And
the real value add and innovation that, really helps people understand the value that you're able to add to the organization from IT, as opposed to just, well, you don't understand, right? We worked all these nights and weekends just to keep it working.
absolutely. Yes.
And now that headache's gone away, as you say. And now, the organization can save, because now instead of needing to hire more resources to do that, exactly as you said, innovation,
You got it.
true design work, figuring out how you're going to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Instead of needing to hire those folks, you guys get to work on all that fun stuff. And then your generalists, your IT generalists, who are going to be there anyway, helping out with, networking and server and other stuff, can now take on the storage, because it's just so much simpler.
Exactly. And Kevin, one word that you reminded me of wanting to say as you were talking, the one thing that we were looking for and we got through Pure Storage is simplicity. Pure Storage really simplified storage for us, that we don't have to think about it. It's no more of, what storage pool should I put this workload on? What tier should it be running on?
Right.
Do we need it in on the all flash? Do we need it at this mid tier? It's no more thought to that. It's put it here and go.
Right.
And when we're receiving sub-millisecond, latencies throughout the day during the highest production workloads, no issues with bandwidth, no issues with I/O. We couldn't be happier. Do we receive any more of those communication link errors? No, we haven't seen those in 3 years since we've had Pure Storage put in.
That's great. And that is, I just recapping a lot of what you just told us, that journey of you've already been burned by the legacy storage vendor with as I said, the overpromising and under-delivering, trust us, it's all going to work. And I'm sure you came at it with some skepticism, hearing similar claims from Pure, but that proof of concept that you did, seemed to have obviously it worked for you in the sense that you were convinced that Pure could actually handle the job. And then once you actually got it on site, you became even more of a believer, seeing how simple it was, how many problems it solved for you. And the fact that, as we'll get to in a second, that's not just in terms of the day-to-day operations, but also when you get to that phase when it's time to upgrade and you need to add more features, or modernize, expand the processing power or the capacity ceilings of all that. But in the meantime, it's just work.
Yeah, I want to focus on something you said as far as with the simplicity aspect of it. I wanted to talk about the maintenance renewal.
So that's the flat and fair.
Yeah, that was one thing that we were able to budget for in year one for year three, which was way beyond anything that we had ever experienced before. Prior with Dell EMC, we did not know what that number was going to look like until it came time for renewal. And
Right.
Then it was spending weeks of going back and forth and finally coming to that final number, where with Pure Storage, we knew that number ahead of time and we could easily budget for that number. And again, as I said, that used to be something that engineering would take care of as far as the maintenance renewal, going through the line items, making sure everything was covered correctly. Where this year, we literally had the technical operations center handle that 100% completely. And there was no
Right.
question from them. They knew
Yeah.
exactly what we were doing and what needed to be renewed, and it was done.
Yeah, and again, that's what we hear from a lot of our customers, the headaches that used to always come up with the procurement side of the house and budgeting and all that, because there were those unforeseen expenses and unknown costs. the ability to just be able to plan and know, yeah, it's going to cost us this much. We know when that renewal is going to happen. There aren't going to be any surprises in it. And as you said, it's not overly complex because it's, there's one line item both when you buy and when you renew. It's your array, and whatever capacity it has, and it's all based on that. It's not based on, oh wait, you're using this feature, oh wait, now you want to use that feature on all 5 of these arrays. Oh, that's going to be more. Yeah, we don't get into that nickeling and diming here at Pure, because we truly believe that not only should the technology be simple, but so should the buying, the ongoing maintenance and ownership, and especially the upgrading time. So while we're talking about the upgrade process, I understand you actually have used the Evergreen capability to upgrade your original arrays to more modern ones. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really looking forward to this part, because I can tell you in year 1, when we purchased the array, after talking to people about, hey, what is this Evergreen experience? What is that like? And they tell you, well, it's just like they tell you. They come in and they change out the storage controllers, and you're good to go. It really sounded too good to be true. So in year 1, we were looking forward to year 3, when we renewed our maintenance, to go through this process. And we literally just went through this process about, it's been several months ago. But the process is exactly as was told us. I mean, it was completely non-disruptive, and we ended up doing it. We did do it at the end of the workday, but it was still during production time. IO wasn't as high, but completely non-disruptive. We didn't have to do any shutdowns of VMs or any ESXi hosts. It was exactly as promised. And we went from we started with a M20 storage controller, right, and we moved to the X20 R3s. And Kevin, I actually did remember what I was going to say earlier about, you were talking about, until you experience it, going through the POC and then actually putting it into production. It's one of those deals like, if you've never had kids before and people tell you about, how it is to have kids and what it's like to have your own kids. And then when you actually have your own kids, you're like, wow, no one can tell you really, right. You can't really define how that is until you actually experience it. And, look, I'm sorry if I sound like I drank the Kool-Aid. I really have not. I'm just telling you what our experience has been. And it truly was, as was told us, the Evergreen experience was super. And 0 issues during the entire upgrade, and we were extremely pleased with the results.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that. I love your analogy, because it really is true. And actually, we at Pure have gone great lengths lately to try and make that proof of concept and the proving it for yourself experience a lot simpler. So it doesn't always require, literally taking possession of an array and running it that way. We actually have a virtual POC center now that we've just spun up in the last 6 months. Coincidentally, we had it planned well before COVID, but boy, pretty good timing, huh? In the ability to remotely get a feel for the experience, because you're absolutely correct. It is, a lot of legacy storage vendors are out there claiming very similar things, but when people actually use the products, their experience matches yours. I mean, I tell people all the time, I have one of the funnest jobs in the world, because not only do I work at Pure, where we know we really deliver on our customer promises, but I work on Evergreen storage, which has the effect that you just described. If you've ever gone through painful refreshes in the past, not just from a technology standpoint, but as you said, from that maintenance renewal standpoint, and that why do I have to rebuy everything, and why does it have to be so complex? And then you go through an Evergreen upgrade like you just described, and you went from our latest technology back in 2017, which would have been that M20, to our latest technology now, which is the, now we're on Model X as opposed to Model M, and we're on the third release of that one. That's what the XR3 stands for. So you didn't have to just go one generation higher or something. You were able to get the latest and greatest. And it still had all the non-disruptive benefits, and it doesn't even affect performance too. And your experience there, I think, matches what a lot of our customers do too. Let's try the first one at the end of the day, just in case,
Right.
because we kind of believe them, but let's just make sure. And then you still see, right, that you don't have to shut down any processes. The performance isn't even impacted. And we do have folks who do their controller swaps even in the middle of production runs without any adverse effects. I think it's always smart to err on the safe side just in case, because human error can happen. But we reduce a lot of that too, and that's it. I just love hearing from users like you, and that again, we're not just making these claims, but they're backed up in the real world.
And I think the beauty of what you just said too, Kevin, is being able to stay modern.
Right.
That was key for us. That, like you said, we moved to the latest controllers that were available. So we are up to date without having any downtime. I think that's significant because of our past experiences. I mean, it was just as you said. And as far as being non-disruptive, so not only was the storage controller upgrade non-disruptive, but the software upgrades. We've had multiple software upgrades since we've had the platform in place prior to Evergreen. And every single software upgrade, we've even gotten to the point now, we used to schedule those end of day. We're doing software upgrades of our Pure Storage middle of the day now. And there's really no concerns with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So you mentioned you're able to stay modern, and I would assume that, again, what we're looking for in IT is the ability to respond, that ability to stay agile. And in the past, legacy storage where you couldn't upgrade it easily or it was cost prohibitive, that would limit your agility. So have you done any, I don't know, look backs to see like what the total cost of ownership or anything like that was for you, and any other ways that you can that you've had to prove to management? I mean, obviously they keep saying that they get that Pure was a great choice, but did you have to kind of prove that to them in any way?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's interesting. I had to put together cost of ownership for our different platforms of storage in our enterprise. And what's really fascinating with Pure Storage is that it actually came out a little cheaper than our former production storage array. Now, granted, the Pure Storage array that we went with was a 40 terabyte raw array, which gives us 22 actual terabytes of usable storage. But where the power comes in is on the deduplication of the array. So it gave us the effective capacity of well over 100 terabytes of storage. And we're running today in our production environment, we're running 56 terabytes, and in our development environment, we're running 35 terabytes. And we're using about a little less than 60% of our Pure Storage array, which is mind-boggling. The power of the deduplication engine on Pure Storage, I think we're getting like 3.9 to 1, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. Our global average is about 5 to 1. Across all the different workloads and all the customers. But right, and we can actually guarantee that for you when a customer is looking at Pure and wants to make sure that the sizing is exactly correct, instead of just guaranteeing a data reduction rate. What we guarantee is the actual effective storage, just exactly what you described. You need 100 terabytes. This size of array is going to give you 100 terabytes. If for any reason we fall short on that, we will add expansion flash in there until it does give you that effective amount of storage that you need. Because in the end, that's all anyone really cares about. It's great to know that you're getting 3.91, but at the end of the day, it's, hey, yeah, I've got a lot of headroom left on this thing. It definitely was sized right for me. I didn't buy too much. I didn't buy too little. And that's another thing that people aren't. No one in IT has ESP. We never know exactly what's going to come around the corner. I don't think anyone a year ago thought we were going to be in the position we're in right now, in terms of how much has to be virtual. And I'm sure your company had to scramble as well as an organization as much as any other, trying to set people up to work remotely and stuff. And the nice thing about Pure is you can buy what you need when you need it, and you can grow and you can modernize like you did if necessary, even on demand. I think you used what we call our free every three part of our Evergreen Gold, but we also have one that you can use at any time called Upgrade Flex, which allows full credit trade-in, to do the exact same motion that you just did of moving from an older controller to the latest one, or even moving up. Let's say suddenly you needed 200 terabytes of effective, and if the 20 didn't support that, you could move up to the 50 with no penalty. Without you don't have to throw out the old stuff. You get full trade-in credit for it, and we're one of the few organizations that can offer that and have a history of customers like you, Tony, who have had success with it. Any
Yeah,
other any other
yeah, I was
thoughts you want to share with the audience?
yeah, I was just going to say that one thing that Pure Storage did at the very beginning was the right sizing portion of it. They do spend time with you. If I remember right, I think there was a pretty extensive questionnaire that we worked together with them
Mm-hmm.
on, and so it wasn't anything that was just done lightly. There
Right.
was a lot of times and effort spent in making sure, hey, are we getting the right amount of storage that we need? Because you're absolutely right. When it comes down to the end of the day, I don't want to have to be worrying about, hey, do I have enough capacity?
Right.
And we've had enough capacity, and we still have some room for growth. So right sizing was done exactly as one would expect it should be done.
That's great. That's fantastic. I think at that point, I'll just do a quick wrap up then, and then we'll get to some Q&A. So a lot of this, Tony, really helped bring to life what we have with Evergreen storage, and our different approach to storage other than how the legacy vendors have done it is a combination of the architecture that Tony was describing, which allows for those non-disruptive upgrades, with a business model called Evergreen Storage that delivers it in the form of a subscription. And so by being on the Evergreen subscription, that's how CBN was able to upgrade their controllers and keep their storage modern without having to rebuy it. That together is what makes Evergreen Storage. And as I said, it really comes down to that architecture with everything that we have in terms of everything being modular and upgradable, discrete controllers that can be upgraded, as you heard Tony say, even during production hours without any negative impact. The chassis itself is designed to last 10 plus years. So it really can be an investment that you make where, instead of looking at it as a disposable asset, you could even do extended depreciation on it if you wanted, because all the parts are interchangeable and allow you to upgrade it over time. The software is so crucial to everything that we offer, not just in terms of that simplicity that Tony described, but new features, things like our active cluster replication capability. We don't charge extra when we add, brand new, very useful features in. They just come as part of the subscription, and everything is upgradable online as well. We touched on a lot of the different parts of the Evergreen Storage program in our conversation with Tony, because we talked about the right size guarantee. That's where we guarantee the actual amount of effective storage you're going to get. We also have a 30-day love your storage. It's actually the best guarantee, satisfaction guarantee out in the market today. No questions asked on it. As I said, all the software is always included. As you run your storage, we talked about that flat and fair, no surprises Maintenance renewal, you know what the costs are going to be. There's no hidden costs in there. Everything is covered. And one thing we didn't touch on was support. We have a very, very high touch and proactive and predictive support infrastructure that's tied in with the monitoring and management tools of Pure One and Meta. And also, just the capabilities within the arrays themselves, which makes that support experience much more high touch and white glove than you might be used to. And then, of course, free every 3, which is what the controller upgrade that CBN used, Upgrade Flex, which is the anytime one. And then you also have a way of trading in old flash for newer to decrease the size of the array while you expand it, because you're moving to more modern, denser flash. What that means to you is that you don't have those big, huge spikes in expenses every 3 to 5 years where you need to both rebuy everything and then pay for those migration projects. And as you heard Tony say, he was able to prove with his own organization that the total cost of ownership was lower with Pure, even just looking at the, more of the hard costs in there because of the data reduction and other things. And then when you start factoring in not having to rebuy your storage, that's where the savings really add up, and you can get 30 to 60% savings versus legacy storage. The key thing here is that, as Tony said, it was maybe a little difficult to believe at first, but CBN has proved over the last 3.5 years that it does work. And we have lots of customers who've been able to do that throughout the history of Pure. We had our first product out in 2012. An array that was purchased then could have transformed into the exact same array that Tony has now, the FlashArray XR3, 8 years later, totally non-disruptive. And even with investment protection, the top part of this slide really just shows the fact that Evergreen has been there all the way through, whether it was the industry's first non-disruptive controller array on our very first, generational upgrade in our second year in business. We did something no other storage vendor had been able to do, to all the firsts that we've had with Evergreen storage and being able to provide that investment protection so that you don't have to rebuy your storage. There's another way of actually consuming your storage as well. If you aren't interested in buying your storage right off, we have something called Pure as a Service, where you can truly subscribe to it as a service and just subscribe to the amount, kind of like you do with public cloud, just the amount of storage that you want. And you can do it actually in the cloud, or you can do it on premises. And that's another option that we give you that, a lot of other vendors don't do, because it's very different from a lease or anything along those lines. It allows you to spin up and spin down your needs, your storage needs, based on your organization. So really what Evergreen Storage and what Pure offers winds up becoming is a subscription to innovation, that innovation that Tony was talking about, that they're able to do at CBN now with their staff, instead of having to just, spend all their time trying to keep the lights on with storage and making sure that, they're responding to all those error messages and, performance issues that they had before. You can buy it once, it stays modern over time. You can harness that rapid software and hardware innovation over time. And as I said, everything is included within the subscription model, your software, your hardware upgrades, trade-in credits. You have a lot of different ways of being able to do it. If you would like to find out more, please go to purestorage.com. We have a special page there called Rethink Storage. So you can see the URL right on the screen there. That's where you can get more information about rethinking your own storage, lots more customer stories and things like that, where you can start getting an idea of what this is like in the real world and start imagining how you can rethink your storage and keep that innovation that you need to do to respond to both the business and organizational needs that you've got within your organization. So with that, I think we'll open it up to question and answer.
All right, great presentation, Kevin and Tony. I love hearing real customer stories. It just brings so much value to these types of events. We do have a lot of good questions for you guys from the audience out here. And the first one I'll start with is for you, Tony. They're asking, what's it like when you need to do software upgrades to the storage, and are those included?
Yeah, as I said earlier, the software upgrades are included. Pure Storage typically reaches out to you, to us, and lets us know when a new code update is available. We're able to go out there, read the release notes. We do go through our own change management process, but as far as the scheduling of the upgrade with Pure, it's very simple, straightforward. It's done through a ticket process. They reach out to you. You do your checks. They do their checks. They do a simple upload. They stage the code to your array. You pick the date and time that you want it done, and it's done. There's no interruption to service, and you come in the next day and you're on the next upgrade of code. And so we've gone through several iterations of that over the last 3 years, and every one of them have been the same. So it's very reliable. It's been great.
I'd love to hear that, how the upgrade process has changed to become now so reliable and just so predictable and so highly available with no downtime. Next question again here for Tony, and that is, you mentioned snapshots. Can you go into some detail on exactly how you use those?
Yeah, so in the beginning use of Pure, we had just started our Microsoft CRM upgrade on-prem, and we needed a way of allowing us to go through we had to go through, I believe it was 4 iterations of the CRM upgrade. We had actually let it get ahead of us too much on the CRM side of things. So we had actually carved out a volume specifically for the CRM database, and it enabled us to provide not only protection through the upgrade process for that CRM database, but there was an instance where we actually had to revert back to the previous version, and it was, obviously it was instantaneous, but it was just a very easy way of giving our DBAs the ability to go through those upgrades with very little downtime or recovery when it came to using the Pure Storage snapshots. Today, we are actually using a third-party product for providing development use cases. We're actually now considering going back to pure snapshot technology and using that more in our development side of things. So we are rethinking of going back to that to the Pure Storage snapshot use.
Excellent. All right. And then there's a question here for you, Kevin. The question is, does Pure have anything that's really pure as a service? Is that possible today?
And yeah, we kind of shoehorned that in at the end, so I'm glad someone asked the question. Yes, we do. It's actually called Pure as a Service, and it is so Evergreen, and what we were talking about most of this discussion today was about if you wanted to purchase your storage in the traditional way, you literally, cut a PO and that's on your books now and you own it. That's where Evergreen storage comes in, as your subscription that keeps things modern and makes that experience better. If you truly want to consume something as a service, like I said, very similar to how you would do public cloud, where you just subscribe and you're just basically, renting space. That's what we do offer as well, even on-prem. So it would be in your data center, and you would have full control over it, but you wouldn't actually have to own it, and you would only pay for the amount of storage that you're actually using. So it winds up being something that if an organization has a cloud first initiative, that's another way of being able to have a hybrid cloud type situation. It's a unified subscription as well, so it does work with the products that we have that actually run in the cloud, such as our cloud block store. Then you get to decide where it runs based on your needs, but it's still one unified subscription. And it just simplifies the whole process completely. But again, that's the power of choice that we offer you here at Pure.
Excellent. I like that flexibility there. And then I know we're running out of time in our webinar event today for our Q&A. Before we go, last question I think we have time for is, a lot of folks out there are, relatively new to this. And I mean, what's the best way to get started? What resources do you recommend?
Suggest going up to our purestorage.com Rethink Storage, the URL that you see there. We've got a lot of great white papers and infographics, articles, blogs, etc., that are linked from there that help paint the picture of the issues you may be dealing with today with legacy storage and how things change with Pure, and then all the different ways that you can get started, whether it's an online demo, actually talking with a sales rep. As I mentioned earlier, that virtual proof of concept or a full proof of concept, we firmly believe that what makes believers out of users is truly using it and noticing the difference between the way you have gotten used to, and through no fault of your own, because those were the only options that were available, running storage the way that the legacy vendors have made you do it, versus that truly open and innovative way that just powers your IT agility, which is what Pure delivers.
Excellent. All right. Well, Kevin, Tony, thank you so much for being on the event today.
Again, thank you, Tony, as well. I really appreciate all your great real-world stories.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And thank you to our audience for watching. We now have a winner of a gift card, a $300 Amazon gift card that we need to announce. Today's winner is Tina Hasselow from Wisconsin. Tina will be reaching out to you after the event with information on how to get your gift card. Thank you to our audience for tuning in. We hope you learned a lot today. And as always, thank you for participating in our events, and have a great rest of your day.